Now, where did I leave my coffee? Oh, there it is. I knew I left it somewhere. Well, good morning. How nice of you guys to come back and join me. I didn't see you there. And I was looking for my coffee. I seem to misplace it every now and then. Perfect. Perfect temperature. Thanks for coming back. This is week 20. Can you believe it? Week 20. 32 weeks to go in the month. In the year for 2023. My dad used to say that time goes faster as you get older, and I, I really believe that because you just have so many things scheduled that maybe aren't as tests and jobs and everything. You're just kind of like going from week to week. So the Sundays are rolling by me. It seems quicker. For those of you who this is your first time, I'm doing a 1,000 pound challenge, and that is to get 1,000 pounds of all of my throwaways, or things that I would recycle normally in my recycling, that you can still recycle. But things like metal cans and beer bottle, wine bottle, anything like that goes out in my community, my county recycling. Excuse me. But the things that I am counting towards my 1,000 pounds are like my fruit and vegetable peels. I just have 2 containers in my freezer. These go to my worms, but if you had a compost pile, it would be perfect for your compost pile. If you don't, and you just even had a pot, a big planter, you can freeze these things, you can puree them, you can work them into your soil, you can add nutrition and nutrients back into your soil. So don't throw things away. My eggshells. If all you have is the ability to take your eggshell and just dry it and crumble it, do that. If you add boiling water to it, the water will, and let it sit, the water will leach out the calcium that's in there, and that's good for your plants as well. Personally, I grind mine in a coffee grinder. In case you didn't know, your blender or your coffee grinder will grind it into a fine powder, and of course, once it's a fine powder, it has more surface area, and the more surface area is, the more effective it is at leaching out different things. So those are things to keep in mind. My shrimp shells. I know that you can just add them back to your worm bin and the worms will take them down, or your compost. But personally, I like to go ahead and grind mine up again in my bean grinder, a seed grinder. And I think it makes it more readily available. Prawn or shrimp shells have loads and loads of chitin in them, and chitin is what is the bone builder, crustaceans. For those of you who have roly-polies, you lift the lid of, lift your pot or something, and you see little roly-polies. They are, in a sense, a very simple crustacean, and their shells are very good for in your soil, even though we consider them the bad bugs. People go, "Ooh, they're disgusting." But anyway, coffee grounds, any leaves that you might have. Sorry, I didn't bring leaves with me today, but any leaves that you might have, if you can break them down. If you put things through your lawnmower once and you think, "Oh, okay, that's it." If you don't have a leaf mulcher, someday when I'm rich and famous, I'll buy one of those leaf mulchers that reduces everything to, smaller amounts. But if you don't, take it out of your mower, lay it out on your grass again, and mow it a second time, and it's amazing how much finer it becomes. I'm doing that with my bougainvillea leaves that have spikes, and I would be afraid to have those spikes where I'm running my hands through them, because some of them are a good inch and a half, and they're pretty lethal. They go into your skin and they come back out. It's almost like, well, my skin swells up. I don't know about anybody else, but mine does. Excuse me. Any small stems that you have, remember, you can plant those. You can put those back into the ground. You can build your own little hugelkultur, where you're either digging it out and adding branches and leaves and everything, and then covering over with soil, and that will break down. It becomes spongy. It holds the water. If it's holding water, it's holding nutrients. So these are all things to think about. Your paper towels, your toilet paper rolls, grass clippings. Boy, those of you who have been following me, you know that my neighbor Brian has a big yard. He's got a corner lot, so he has not only all of his corner, but then he has the sidewalk and swale area. And this week I think he had, well, it was right close to 30 pounds of grass clippings. So that was, that's a real major towards my 1,000 pounds. But here I've got my coffee grounds and my tea bag. My tea bag is Twining tea, and it's not a biodegradable, so I will empty that and discard the tea bag. But I think we get so extreme. If you can't do it perfectly, well, I'm not doing it at all. Last week I mentioned my neighbor. I know he puts all sorts of trash in his recycling bin, and when they come down, they just take it. They don't. The guy's in the truck and it lifts it up. He doesn't look at what's in there. Even if it's a pizza box, they say that it can ruin a whole truckload of stuff, or a hopper load full of stuff going through. So you can do what you can do. If all you can do is crumble your eggs instead of pulverizing them, if all you can do is throw your tea bags out there and hope for the best, Mother Nature is going to take care of it. If the worms don't want it, they will throw it back. If it goes into the soil, and the worms and the roly-polies and the microbes and the bacteria and the fungi and everything else on earth doesn't want it, it'll stay. So I did mention this a couple times a few weeks ago, is that there's liquid in your canned goods. If you have a no salt added, save it. And even if you do have just liquids, add it to your watering can. There's always nutrients in this sort of thing. I was cooking some frozen spinach. Oh my goodness, because I wanted to use it as a dip. So for anybody who's done chopped spinach, you know that you take it from the freezer, put it in your microwave, cook it. You probably get a good 1/2 to 3/4 of a cup of liquid in that. And then you add your sour cream or whatever you're adding to your milk, whatever you're adding to it to reconstitute it and use it. And I thought, wow, there has to be some nutrition in that spinach that you just pulled out. Now, if you're not going, there's no salt added. If you're not going to drink it or use it for your own health benefit, put it in your watering can. Give it to your worms, give it to your compost, give it to your plants. You're growing your soil. It's a hard concept to keep in mind. And by the way, if I've said this now 3 times, I could say it 10 times. I still have to go out in the kitchen as Rick is making Friday night dinner. He likes corn. So don't ask me why, but he makes the Friday night dinner. It's something very simple, and it's, you know, corn in a can. And I still have to say, could you save that liquid for me? Oh yeah, I was going to, as he's aiming for the sink, you know, to throw it away. So we all learn at our own pace. Um, my vacuum cleaner. I have a HEPA vacuum cleaner. I wasn't saving that. Sandra at Nana's Garden and Worms, she has a, a separate bin. It's called Cinderella. Do you love it? And she feeds all of her, you know, hairs from her dog, all of her sweepings that she puts into Cinderella. Cinderella has some beautiful castings, I might add. Your dryer lint. For the most part, you don't have to worry because the only thing that comes off in lint is cotton. I was worried about that, and nylon or something like that. And Rick said, well, the only lint that you have is what comes off of cotton. I thought, oh, okay. He's a pretty smart guy. He can't remember to save the draining sphere, but you know, he's a pretty smart guy. I thought, that's probably true. And even if it isn't, if the worms don't want it, they're not going to eat it. Any stale bread. Now, we very seldom have stale bread in our house because I'll make French toast, or we'll have toast with it or whatever. But any of these things, your tortilla shells and such, boy, that is great for the worms. It's great for your compost. They love worms love sweet things. So do microbes, so do bacteria. They love sweet things. Any of your stale things that you're going to throw out or otherwise discard, you can either give it to them whole, or I like grinding things up. That's just my personal view. On the cardboard side, if you have any eggshells, egg cartons, that's marvelous. Any rice, if you're rinsing your rice, the water has vitamins in it. It has micronutrients in it. It's excellent. You can use it to rinse your hair if you like, but you can also use it for your plants. It's wonderful for your plants. I try to save all of my paper goods. If I've gone somewhere and they happen to have paper towels in the ladies' room, well, for the most part, you know, I use that to open the door after I've dried my hands. And one last, I'm sorry, if you're doing a hugelkultur or anything like that, you know, you can bury these and they really will add bulk. If you want to, and you have heavy pots, you can, you know, put a layer of pine cones on the bottom, and they're lighter than a heavy soil, especially if you have a big pot. One other thing that I started saving, I used to throw these over the back all the time because we live on a preserve, and we get little shaves of pine cones. I'm sorry, little shaves of pine bark. And so I started to save them, and I'm grinding them up, and you can see, I think you can see that they just grind into powder. I mean, think about it. You have wood shavings, don't you? Well, the same thing. And I'm going to sprinkle this on the worms, and just kind of as a carbon source. So that's all of the things I can think of, with one exception. Another idea of boiling, soaking, saving, using. We had a pork roast and a semi-boneless ham over the last couple months. One was Easter and one was just sauerkraut, pork, and mashed potatoes. Excellent meal. Anyway, you can still see that there's marrow in there. Maybe you can't see that, but I can. So these bones were taken and in my crock pot, and I made bone broth, which is so good for your health. I mean, it is just so good for you. Add a little bit of vinegar. I use the Mother's vinegar. The name just went out of my head, but you know, you see it at the grocery store and it says the mother. And it's really the best organic vinegar. But if you pour that on the bones and let them sit for a couple hours, it'll break down, it'll help break down the bones. But I cook my bone broth for at least a 24-hour period, and I add herbs to it, and you know, some turmeric and paprika, and you know, sage and bay leaves, basil, oregano. I mean, any of the things that you might like, and I make a broth out of that, and then I just have a little bit of it in the mornings. And I think that's probably a better way to start my day. And then I go for my coffee. But if you had a grinder, you could grind this up. I mean, have you ever gone to the store and bought bone meal, blood meal? That's the marrow. So here you have the two, crush them together, and you, if not, put it in your hugelkultur. I mean, you're just grow your soil. So, okay, so anything else? Popsicle sticks, cork. I forgot to bring my cork. Any of these things are wonderful to grow your soil and to also add to your 1,000-pound challenge. My friend Matt over at Matt Hall Family Farms, he was mentioning on his channel that he watches and that he's been thinking about joining me and doing that. So no pressure, Matt, but we're almost to the half year mark. So I added up all my little notes. I keep a daily record, as you can see, of what I'm doing. It's a learning experience again, is to, you know, keep records and keep daily records. And it's probably a good thing, isn't it? You know, that we keep track of ourselves. So anyway, with Brian, who was 29 pounds, I'm afraid we didn't get that much. Our grass was cut very short 2 weeks ago, and so Rick left bald spots, and I said, no. Raise your level and do it. But anyway, with Brian, we got 42 pounds, 3.2 ounces, and we had 490 pounds and change. So we're up to 532 pounds, 10.9 ounces for 20 weeks. So well on our way to our 1,000-pound mark and maybe more. I would like to think that I was able to get 1,000 pounds on my own without Brian, but I think he's going to be my my trusty little assistant and put us over the line. So I think that's it. No words of wisdom this week other than, you know, enjoy your week and enjoy each other. Next weekend, yesterday was Queen Victoria Day in Canada. I don't know if England, I would think they would. I mean, she was their queen also. So many parts of the world celebrated yesterday and celebrated the long weekend. The U.S. Next weekend is our weekend to celebrate Memorial Day and all those who have served, whether living or deceased, in our armed forces. And so that'll be our 3-day weekend, and always good to remember why you're celebrating, not just that it's, you know, pick up the hot dogs and beer. So with that, I will say thanks again for coming. I hope you'll subscribe, and I hope you'll watch. I really get kind of discouraged in the fact that I've been doing this for over 2.5 years, and I have so few watched hours. I seem to only get about 20 to 30% of watch people actually staying for the whole thing. If you can think of how I can improve that, I would love to hear from you. So with that, I will say bye-bye. Have a great week. And remember, garden what you've got. I and my coffee are going for a nice place with my feet up and a nice book. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.